listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again. Today, we have another amazing show lineup for y'all. Just like we always do, we have our special guests not just share their story, but tell us something that is going to inspire you. We have the one and only Clay Boatright. He has an amazing book that we are going to be discussing today, God's Plan, Our Circus. And we're going to first just have an opportunity to get to know him. He is a native of Memphis, Tennessee. He's been a resident in Texas since 1994. He is going to share with us his amazing story. First and foremost, Clay, thank you for your time. How are you doing today?
I'm well, Shamaya. Thank you very much. I'm doing well and delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. I appreciate your time. So kind of paint the picture a little bit of who you are and what eventually inspired you to write this book.
Starting out, I was just a typical guy growing up in Memphis, Tennessee. Met a young woman when I was 21. She was 20. Her name was Carole. We got married, moved to St. Louis for job purposes, then moved to Houston, then found ourselves in the Dallas area here about 27 years ago. And by itself, not particularly interesting, but what happened along the way was rather curious. We had three daughters. Our oldest is now 26 and made me a grandfather about 2 months ago. So that was exciting. And then I also have 23-year-old identical twins, Paige and Mia, who have extremely severe intellectual disabilities and autism. And this was something that we did not anticipate. We didn't know about until their 24-month well baby visit. And that launched us into an unplanned life that one would not have expected of raising children with disabilities, getting into the advocacy world and so on. And once we raised all the kids, got Blair off to college, into her full-time career, found a great group home set up for our twins. My wife went back to work after 20 years of staying at home, and 6 months later was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, which eventually took her life. So it sounds like a tragic story with a lot of challenges, and there are some challenges. But the way I look at it is I have been blessed with those challenges. And the purpose of the book, God's Plan, Our Circus, is to share with people who have gone through extreme difficulties, whether it's losing a spouse or having children with disabilities or other extreme circumstances, to realize that stuff happens. The only thing we can really control is how we respond to it.
And based on that information, you serve on numerous health and education advisory committees. Like you say, you became an advocate for this. You also serve as the board president for both the ARC of Dallas and the ARC of Texas. In 2011, President Barack Obama appointed you to the President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities in Washington, D.C. With all these experiences, plus managing your own career, I believe it's in your bio you managed 2 full-time careers for the past 20 years. What was it like for you?
It was it's funny. On the one hand, I want to say it was challenging. On the other hand, it kind of wasn't. People talk about work-life balance. I honestly have no idea what that means. We're in control of where our bodies are at every moment of the day. And to my knowledge, the only people who are not in control of where they are every moment of the day are in prison. So if we're not in jail, then we are wherever we need to be, whether it has to deal with work or family or whatever the case may be. So I have a little bit of a testimony, which kind of launched this whole adventure that you just touched on. When my twins were about 4 years old, we were having a rough night at home. It was a Friday night. The twins were having some behavioral meltdowns. They weren't doing well. My older daughter was upset because her sisters were upset. My wife, she was pretty frustrated, pretty aggravated. And with the whole family kind of losing it, I did what any good husband, father, leader, family leader would do under those circumstances. And I went to bed. I'm like, you know what? I can't fix this right now, but it'll be here tomorrow. We'll worry about it then. So I went to bed that Friday night, and I'll be honest with you, I was mad at God. And I'm laying in bed and I'm talking to God saying, Lord, why did you do this to Paige and Mia? Why did you create them with these disabilities? And to be blunt, why did you do this to me? And that's what was on my mind as I fell asleep that night was, why did you do this? Now, I don't usually go to bed mad, but when I do, it's almost like the emotions marinate overnight and I wake up madder than the next morning than I was the night before. But that Saturday morning, that next day was very different. I woke up that Saturday with like an excitement in my soul, like fresh wind, fresh air in my lungs. I was ready to go out and seize the world, ready to go grab it, feeling positive and upbeat. And the very first words that entered my mind were to help people with severe disabilities, to help people like Paige and Mia. Now, there is no way on God's green earth, given the chaos of our family, the challenges of going to work every day and earning a living and all that kind of stuff, that I would have come up with that answer on my own. And I honestly believe that I fell asleep asking God a question, why did you do this? And he sent the Holy Spirit and answered it, that he did it to help people like Paige and Mia, to help people with severe disabilities like they have. So at that moment, I'm like, okay, well, this is big. The great thing was it happened. Two great things happened. Number one, it happened. Number two was I realized it. I had the wherewithal to realize that something unique had just happened. So had to do something, had to take action. So I got out of bed and went to the family computer and did what millions of people every day when they have questions. I Googled it. And I typed 4 words, and forgive the vernacular, or the terminology has improved a lot since 2004. But my twins' original diagnosis was mental retardation. So I typed those words, Dallas, where I live, and help. So to help people, help. So type those 4 words, hit enter. And I became an organization I had never heard of before called the Arc of Dallas, which I would soon find out the ARC system in the United States is the oldest group of nonprofit organizations helping people with developmental disabilities, like intellectual disabilities, autism, and so on. I went on their website and said, well, this looks like a good organization. And 2 weeks later, I reached out to them on Monday morning. 2 weeks later, I'm on their board of directors. A couple of years after that, I'm their board president. Soon after that, I got involved with the state ARC down in Austin. And along the way, I'm meeting families. I'm learning about issues others' family face that are similar or very different than what my family was facing. When I got down to Austin and was working with ARC down there, I started meeting state legislators and the state bureaucrats, administrators at Health and Human Services, and understanding how the system operates. And along the way, I'm taking what I'm learning and sharing back with families and posting things on Facebook and letting people kind of know things to do if you have a child with a disability. And then really within about 7 years after Paige and Mia's diagnosis, I was appointed to a federal advisory committee. President Obama appointed me to a federal advisory committee in Washington and was on that for 2 years. And it's interesting to realize that along the way, I met thousands and thousands of people, and virtually none of them knew what I did for a living. But everybody knew what I did for free, because that's the passion that was being reflected. That's what kind of God's direction was on that Friday night. And you and I would not be having a conversation right now had I not gone to bed mad at God on a Friday night.
Man, that's an amazing story. And the fact that you've been able to not just live this out and touching people's lives. I'm sure you have met a lot of parents who were going through what you're going through, having all these questions that they needed answers to. How am I supposed to get through this? What are some of the resources that are available? As you got deeper and deeper and being assigned to do this and work through this, not just with the nonprofit, what was some of the things you were able to learn from these parents and also yourself as you were answering these questions, working with your, children and what they were going through?
Well, several things. So one of the things I learned is that we can tell ourselves and we can try and plan all kinds of stuff, right? We humans, we like to think we're in control of things and we can plan our own destiny and determine what we want to be and who we want to become and work towards that. And we can to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, stuff happens, right? Just crap happens and that we have no control of. So the only thing that we really have control of is how we choose to respond to things. And after my wife passed away, a few months after she died, I got on these crazy dating apps and started meeting people and hearing tons of stories. And I was having a conversation with a woman one afternoon, and she made an interesting comment. I had told her my story, and she said, well, Clay, we all have experiences and challenges, baggage and drama. And I paused for a second and I said, well, yes and no. We all have experiences and challenges. That's absolutely true. Can't get away from that. But baggage and drama are optional. It's all in how you choose to look at it. And happiness is a choice. And that is kind of the underpinning of the book and the story that I try to convey to people is that, yes, each one of us is going through a challenge, a difficult challenge that in most cases, nobody else even knows about. Sometimes they do, but many cases they don't. And it's a challenge, of course, we didn't sign up for. The only thing we can really do is choose how do we respond to it and how do we deal with the day in and day out issues associated with that challenge. In the book, one of the things that I outline are for families with disabilities, the top 5 things for them to do. And I nowhere do I tell anybody, and even in my advocacy work, I've never told anybody what they should do. Someone told me one time not to use the word should because nobody likes to be should on. Okay. Nobody likes to be told what they should do. Instead, I'll just throw out ideas or give examples of things and let people decide what's right for them. But the 5 things I recommended for families with disabilities is number 1, far and away, most important is get help at home. Trying to do things all by yourself. Martyrdom. Yeah, that's what it is. It's like taking on the pain, taking all the tragedy yourself. Martyrdom is not sexy, and it does not help you and your family, and it will destroy your family in many cases. So get help at home, whether it's family members or hiring people or whatnot. In the disability world, there are things called Medicaid waivers, which are paid for a combination of federal government and state governments, which can provide money in many cases to families to help them meet the needs of raising their children with disabilities. And number 3 is in different communities, there's various programs. Churches or your local park and recreation services or whatnot may have a whole host of programs that are available for families to take advantage of. So it's beneficial to do that. And the number 4 was find a church home that is open to you and your family. As you can tell, I'm a faith-based guy. I'm a church-going kind of guy, and there have been many times which being tied into the faith has helped give me perspective to help work through a lot of the daily challenges. And then finally, just get involved. So often, and we dads are really bad about this. So often, we think that, well, I go to work every day. That's my contribution to the family. Yeah, that's part of your contribution, but you don't get any special credit. Everybody goes to work every day. There's nothing unique about that. It's the question is, what's the incremental? What can you do above and beyond that is not only going to help your family, but also bring benefit to other people. You meet other people and you learn a lot, and that's how you wind up benefiting your own family. So those are the types of things that I learned that I've tried to share with people over time.
We're talking to our guest today, Clay Boatright. You can go to his website, clayboatright.com. And also, you can get his book right there on his website, or you can get it on Amazon, God's Plan, or Circus. Now, diving into the book, you use humor in your book as well. Tell us a little bit about that and why you wanted to just have a lighthearted approach into something that can be, a very serious topic.
It comes back to that perspective piece. I've had a slogan. I even put it on my Facebook page years and years ago, long before I wrote the book. It's kind of a personal motto, and that is, life is too important to be taken seriously. And I say that out loud, and sometimes people look at me like I have 3 heads. kind of the same look I get when I tell people that I'm blessed to have challenges. I'm like, what? It's not intuitive necessarily, but so often we just need to step back and laugh, or just step back and realize, you know what? I don't get it. This is just really strange. It's odd. And I try to find the humor or the upbeat in just about every situation. And sometimes it's hard. And sometimes you don't catch it at the moment when you're going through the challenge. It maybe takes a little bit to get through it. Then you can look back at it. But you try to take a more lighthearted approach and just not make everything a intense drama situation. It's just exhausting. It just wears you out after a while. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff in the book where I'm describing crazy situations that I have a scene in the book where we're at a restaurant and just trying to get out of the restaurant took 15 minutes because one of my twins was stealing food off people's plates as we're walking through it. Some parents, you can get mad and freak out. Her sister was already out in the car, and I'm trying to get her out of the restaurant, and she's stealing biscuits off of people's tables, and everyone is noticing it. And finally, I just said, "Hey, you know what? This is what happens when she drinks." It's just the type of thing you don't know what to do. But anyway, you just take a lighthearted approach. I have found can relieve a lot of stress. And relieving that stress helps free the mind to think more rationally and to come up with ideas that we wouldn't normally think of otherwise.
Two other elements that you use in the book outside of humor is grace and faith. You mentioned earlier in the episode that you are a man of faith. How have you used grace and faith to also be a part of your journey, how you deal with challenges?
Well, one of the things I realized a long time ago is God's a lot smarter than I am, and I needed to get over it. And I think that's true for all of us. We have to recognize that God's plan, part of the title of the book, God's plan that he has for each and every one of us is a real deal, but we may not fully understand it for one simple reason. He's God and we're not. And a lot of times he allows things to play out, like having 2 children with severe disabilities, like having a wife going through 18 months of a chemo and finding out at the end it's not going to work. I don't understand either one of those things. I did have the Friday night revelation I described a moment ago about my twins, but he didn't ask for my opinion. He called that shot on his own because he has that right to do that. My obligation in that process, as from a faith standpoint, is to say, you know what, God, I don't get it. I don't fully understand it, but I'm going to trust that you do. And this is part of a plan that you have in place. So I'm just going to ask that you use me in whatever way you feel appropriate, and that I'm open to that and can hear it and put my own ego aside, which is tough for us. I mean, it's tough for me. You have to put the ego aside and my personal goals and objectives and all that happy horse cred that I came up with in my own head that I didn't necessarily ask him about. Sometimes we have to sideline that, and for me, the only way to remain sane and to rationalize a lot of this was to recognize that God's got it. And it would be great if sometime when I'm still in this life that I understand why, but I also recognize that it may not be until I'm in the next one that I get it.
It says in your bio, by the way, we're talking to our guest today, Clay Boatright. You can go to his website, clayboatright.com. It says in your bio how after Carole's death in 2020, that your overall focus for the future was to embrace the future with enthusiasm and the desire to help everyone know that God has a plan for their lives. How has that been able to not just help you go through what you went through losing your wife, but also seeing the big picture that, okay, God has, ultimate control. This is me following that path.
So I described a moment ago I call it the first revelation, the Friday night experience, which totally changed the course of my my life in terms of, moving me off of this traditional career path into a parallel path that included the advocacy piece. The second kind of God-based aha moment happened a few days after Carole died. So she passed away on February 11th of 2020, right before COVID hit. So she died February 11th. And 3 days later was Valentine's Day. Now, our oldest daughter had come back from Nashville, where she lived, for her mom's services and so on. And she and her boyfriend, now husband, wanted to go out for Valentine's Day. And that's cool. So I said, fine. So I walked into a grocery store near our house here in the Dallas area, and just to find something for dinner. And I'm sad as can be. My wife had died 3 days earlier. She wasn't just my best friend, not to sound sad, but she was kind of my only friend. And she was gone. We'd been married for 30 years. And I was, woe is me, sad, depressed, just dismal. And that's how my brain was as I'm walking through this grocery store. As woe is me, life sucks. Yeah. And then somewhere around aisle 9 in the grocery store, hair care aisle, don't know why it happened there, but around aisle 9, in an instant, everything changed. It was kind of like that Saturday morning I described a little while ago. In an instant, I went from being downtrodden, sad, and depressed, and tears swelling up in my eyes and all that stuff, to upbeat and excited and ready to grab the future. And I believe that God revealed two things to me with absolute clarity. And again, I have to give it to God, because there's no way I would have cooked this up on my own. The first thing was, Carole's doing great. She's doing a lot better than the rest of us. She is now experiencing what all we Christians aspire for, and that is to spend eternity with God. So I viewed that understanding as God kind of releasing me from having to mourn my wife, because you don't mourn somebody who's doing better than you are, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So there was that piece. So the first aha was Carole status. Second one had to do with me. So I was 55 years old at the time. I'm 58 now, but I was 55, and I've been married for 30 years. For the first time in my life, certainly my adult life, I had virtually no obligations and responsibilities. My oldest daughter was out of college and starting her career. My twins were in a wonderful group home not far from where we lived and was being taken care of. And we were involved in their lives, but in a much easier way than when they were growing up. So that the twins were set up. Carole was now in heaven and not dealing with pain and cancer and treatments anymore, having the greatest experience there. And again, it was this realization I had no obligations, responsibilities, and I could literally do whatever I want. And I'm like, well, that's not a bad place to be. So thinking through that, I'm like, okay, I can quite literally do whatever I want. Okay, God, $1 million question is, what do you want me to do? What this opportunity has been presented. What do you want me to do with it? And to be candid, the answer to that question, I think, is still being constructed. I believe writing the book is part of it. I'm having the opportunity to have a wonderful conversation with you right now. And hopefully some of your listeners are hearing what I'm describing, and maybe it might resonate with them in some way and can give them a little different outlook on the day. So those types of things. And we'll see where God's plan leads towards the future. But the point is, I realized that being sad and depressed for myself wasn't the answer. It was more, how can I do things to take these challenges, and instead of being that I've had throughout the last 30 years, and make them more positive and uplifting, not only to the benefit of others, but to be selfish, kind of benefits me too. Makes me happy, puts me in a better mood, and those types of things. So that's helped a lot. That's been immensely helpful in terms of dealing with a lot of stuff.
We've been talking to our guest, Clay Boatright. You can go to his website, clayboatright.com, and you can get his book, God's Plan, Our Circus. It's right there on the website, or you can get it on Amazon, anywhere you can buy a book. First and foremost, I mean, the title of the book is spot on. Anyone who has a story can take some time and talk about their experience of their little circus. I mean, who doesn't have one? And the fact that you're using the pain that you went through to show people that that's not the end of the road is not just inspiring, but it's something someone has to choose to do. Like you said earlier, we have to choose to be happy. We have to choose this, look at the brighter side of everything. Someone who's listening to this right now, everyone has a unique story, unique problems. But based on your personal experience dealing with pain, setbacks, life happening, what's that one thing or two things or whatever you want to say to it that keeps you pushing forward, knowing that at the end of the day it's worth it if you don't, allow these setbacks to put into, your life?
Mm-hmm. So, as I was mentioning, attitude's everything. Okay, because we can't control we can't control the circus. Sometimes the circus gets thrown right on top of us. Well, only thing we can do is choose how to respond to it. So they say you shouldn't give away the ending of the book before people have read it, but I'm going to give away the ending of the book. Okay. So when I wrote through it, the last chapter is the true comic relief. It's the joys of dating in your mid-50s. But anyway, so I describe a lot of the dating world, and I get to the end of that, and I'm sharing a story. And the last two sentences I used in the book, suddenly when I wrote them, I'm like, you know what? This is the recommendation. This is the key takeaway that I want people to live with. So the last two sentences of the book are: every day I look for something to appreciate, and I tell people how important they are. It's made all the difference. And that's honest to goodness truth, is every day I look for something to appreciate. And it's amazing. It's not that hard, whether it's family or friends or home or weather or going to a sporting game, going to a ball game or what, there's in our lives. Even when we're going through the darkest challenges, there's still something out there which can make us smile, or which we can be thankful. Say, you know what? Yeah, this is craziness that I'm dealing with, but thank goodness for X. That's the appreciation piece. And then we're all social people. And my experience has been that instead of putting energy and effort into setting expectations of other people and how I think other people should behave or what they should be doing for me or whatever that is, instead of setting expectations for other people, I find it much easier and makes me much happier if, as I said, I appreciate them for who they are and I tell them that. And it's amazing when you tell someone, honestly, how much you appreciate them for whatever it is, and they're not expecting to hear it, you can change the course of someone's day. And how they may respond positively and get upbeat has a ripple effect on other people they encounter that day. I mean, it sounds silly, but it's so true. If we can let people know how much we appreciate them, it makes us feel better. It makes them feel a whole lot better. And then the ripple effect that has on other people they encounter in their lives, in their day, in their family, and so on, it's a gift that keeps on giving. And I genuinely believe, I know for a fact, that those elements, the appreciation and letting people know how important they are, gives me an upbeat style. And I believe if we all did that we would see a very, very positive benefit in our lives.
Been talking to our guest, Clay Boatright. You can go to his website, clayboatright.com, and get Clay's book on Amazon or right there on his website, God's Plan, Our Circus. First and foremost, I want to say thanks for your time. I didn't ask you what you do for a living, but we can keep that mysterious question mark if you don't want to go down that road, because I think we can kind of tell how great you are as a person.
Thank you. That's very kind. I appreciate that. I mentioned 95% of the people I know have no idea what I did for a living, but everyone knows what I do for free. I've had people think that I'm in the witness protection program, that I was in the mob. I was not nothing near as exciting. Trust me. I was a sales and marketing guy. Marketing research was what I did for a living. Not near as interesting as the passion that came through the advocacy piece, and then what we're talking about now.
If someone is listening to this, last time I asked you before we let you go, someone listening right now, and maybe they are probably at their darkest point in their life. Everyone's situation is different, but what will you say to them to encourage them to keep their head above and look towards the light versus, what you were going through, those dark moments where at first you were, thinking that, man, what else, what's next? And instead of that, you just embrace the attitude that, nah, this is not a period, this is a comma. I can get through this.
The perspective I would urge anyone going through a really dark time is to remember that even though we may not understand it, God's got it. So God has that plan in place, and that's what we're currently having to work through. It's like driving through a severe thunderstorm, and you're in the storm, and you can't see the road, and you're nervous about traffic, and you can't see past your headlights, and it's scary. You don't like it, but you keep driving, because you'll eventually drive through it. There's a destination on the other side. The sun will come out on the other side, and it's that destination we need to get to. And the cool thing about life, and particularly when we defer to God being smarter than we are, is He will plan stuff better for us than we could ever do for ourselves. The challenge is, though, to keep driving through that storm and to keep plowing through it. And it's so much easier to say than it is to do. But maintaining that perspective, trying to find the funny in things like we were talking about, and also trying to find those things to appreciate the people around us and let them know that we appreciate them. Those are the things that help you get through that storm and then get to the sunlight on the other side.
God's Plan, Our Circus. You can get the book right now on Clay's website. It's clayboatright.com, or you can go to Amazon and get it. I want to say again, thanks again to you, Clay, for your time.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you for yours.